Usually when there's rumors of video game consoles, we only ever hear about one of them, but the rumor going around right now is that Microsoft is gonna release two.
Hot.
Same rumor, different year.
Hot take.
My heart will go on.
Project Scarlett. As far as 2018 was concerned, Scarlett meant two consoles.
That's right.
You had your Pro console, which was nicknamed or codenamed the Anaconda.
Yes.
And then you had your sort of scaled back budget console, and that was the Lockhart.
That is correct.
Okay, but since then, since 2018, Phil Spencer himself, the head of Xbox, has been talking about Scarlett as more of a singular console. And this goes back to E3 of this year. He was basically saying, no, we're concentrating on one console for the launch of Scarlett. And then more recently, there was an interview with Eurogamer where they directly questioned Phil Spencer about this, about Lockhart, and whether or not it would still be a thing. And yeah, his messaging was pretty clear that they're just concentrating on one console right now. But it turns out that might not be true.
Which is just crazy, but...
What?
Look, folks, we've talked about how the messaging that comes out of Microsoft over the past little while has been a little bit mixed and crazy and weird, and, well, it only seems to get worse through every passing month. Now, this most recent issue that we're having is basically a rumor that should have been squashed a very long time ago because we're getting really close to larger announcements about this system. But unfortunately, it looks like Lockhart is still alive?
I know, and this sort of information getting out right now, it confuses people, so it could be problematic, and maybe that's why they're trying to sort of keep this stuff a little bit hidden. Just recently, Jason Schreier over at Kotaku had written an article, because a lot of people have been talking about dev kits and systems and things, but Jason Schreier wrote an article saying that there are several devs that have been briefed on the Lockhart system, like I believe it was 4 devs, and it is still very much happening. This scaled back system. It's supposed to be diskless, supposed to have a solid state drive. A lot of people are talking about solid state drives across the board, including Sony's devices as well. And it should have a faster CPU. I believe it's than any other game console that's on the market right now, which makes sense, right?
Yeah, because it's the latest. It's
going to be the next generation of consoles, right?
But here's the problem. Developers, we've heard rumors that developers are having issues right now when it comes with working with Microsoft because there is just so much of a mixture of things that have happened with the Xbox One and Xbox One X and the Xbox SAD. One SAD, it's just SAD, just Xbox SAD.
It's the Xbox One S all digital.
That's it.
It's the Xbox One
Multiple
SAD.
variations of systems. Developers don't really know how to cover each system properly or effectively, and there has been an issue where if they were releasing a bunch of games on disc, there is now a solid or a version of the system that exists that doesn't have a disc drive, so anyone that wasn't buying Xbox games before has even less of a reason to buy it now if they happen to get the SAD version. Going into the next generation, now developers might also be having to worry about, hey, well, if Sony just has one box and we make a game for that one box and we can guarantee everyone that buys that one box has the ability to go to the store and pick up a disc, does that mean that with the next generation of Xbox systems, you're already talking about a diskless version of the system? That means that any disc that sits on a store shelf may not be picked up by those people that bought that system.
But not only that, when you go into the internals, like both of these systems, from what was reported in the article on Kotaku, they have different specs. So Microsoft's ideal target performances are said to be 4K 60 frames per second on Anaconda, and then 1440p 60 on Lockhart.
Yeah.
So when you get to like the sort of different internal specs, it can be troublesome for developers that are going to be, I mean, they have expectations for their games and they want them to run a specific way. And if you have 2 different SKUs, then that might start scaring off, especially like third-party developers. We can't forget like the troublesome, whenever a console is troublesome to develop for, people tend to back away from it. We saw that with the Wii U. We saw that with the Saturn. We saw that with, I mean, the N64.
Yeah, you can go like a huge history of companies that have had that exact same problem. The most recent example of a very big difference in quality is if you play Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Xbox One X, you get the best version of that game you can play on consoles, superior to every other version that exists on any other platform. Play it on the Xbox One, just the regular one, it is the worst version of the game that you can play on any other console. And that really doesn't matter when the majority of people that are playing that game on console are playing it on PlayStation 4, which does have 2 versions, but the second version of the PlayStation 4 isn't wildly popular, and on top of that, it really isn't that much of a different system. It just basically pushes the graphics up to 4K, and it doesn't even do that. It's basically checkerboarding it. It was kind of a weird thing. When you're looking at what Microsoft has done recently, they've kind of fractured their own smaller demographic.
Right. And I think part of, because things are fracturing a little bit, I think this may be why Phil Spencer's trying to get ahead of the messaging of there possibly being more than one console, because we saw the release of the SAD, and it didn't do that well.
That's true.
A lot of people were like, what the heck is this? And now, like, before this console was released, they're probably like, yes, okay, we're setting this up right now so people are used to having a digital device alongside a physical device, and then it's seamless. Going into the next generation, you got your diskless console, your disk driveless console, and you got your disk drive console. So I'm starting to wonder, and I want to get your opinion on this, whether or not when a Scarlett device is released, we'll see whatever the Anaconda is, of course, whether they will launch at the same time or whether there will be like a staggered release dates.
Well, if I was Microsoft, I would not be releasing more than one system at launch. It's a very difficult thing to do. I know we talk about the Xbox 360 and that had multiple versions when it originally released, but also remember that the original Xbox 360, all of them also red-ringed. So there's reasons why you don't do that stuff early on and make multiple variations of the console that are so difficult and confusing to understand.
And I would say, to be fair, we're talking about SKUs that, like, we're dealing with, like, memory to save things and stuff. They still ran discs, and they ran things pretty well across the board the same way.
That's right. When it came to the PlayStation 3, we saw variations of that at launch as well too. It's not really a great idea. The Wii U also had two variations, but with that one, it had more or less, one was included with a game, the other one I believe wasn't. There was some
and different memory capacities as well.
But when it comes to a system like what we're seeing with the next generation of Xbox consoles, something you need to keep in mind. The idea of a diskless, cheaper version of the system is to get people onto that platform as quick as possible. Now, you would assume this is for the end consumer to save money. This is not. This is a fallacy. If you bought the Xbox SAD, the one that's already out right now, you're likely going to be spending more money on Xbox than you would with someone else that bought an Xbox One just plain. The reason that happens is because Microsoft is going to make a lot more money from you selling games to you directly digitally, but if you had owned the console that could get discs, you could get used discs. So you could actually have a cheaper proposition there.
Yeah, but I think it all boils down to what you want out of your console experience, because the digital age is here now, and people are very interested in digital games. If people want to jump on board with this next generation of consoles and go with Lockhart, maybe they're just interested in Game Pass.
That's true.
Maybe they're just interested in Project xCloud.
Absolutely.
And for those people, this device is I think a good get. If you want to go all digital, and that's your sort of headspace there. But yes, if we don't see a sort of staggered release date, we're going to have that issue, the classic issue of folks going in and trying to buy these products, especially day one, when you hear that these consoles are first launched. Not a lot of people are investing in educating themselves on what each of these boxes offers. So they're like, no, I just want the new Xbox.
Somebody goes to the store, picks up the console, comes home, and they bought games already.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like, where's the disc drive? And they stick it in the fan output, and then the whole thing blows up. You don't want that, folks. And look. If you're watching the show, you know your video games, you understand this stuff. This isn't a confusing thing to you, but there's a lot of people out there that simply don't. They don't understand a lot about video game systems and platforms, and it gets very confusing very easily. And I believe for Microsoft to be successful at this, they need to be consistent with their messaging right down the line. And if they get really strange with consoles that offer one thing that the other one drastically doesn't have, also, like at the very get-go, if you sell a system that doesn't have a disk drive and you're trying to convince developers, hey, make games on discs with us, only 50% of our audience might actually buy those discs, I think developers are going to be like, no, and walk away, right? Am I wrong there?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think another thing that has to be considered, though, is like the price point of said console as well. So if Lockhart is like, okay, you have the problems with discs and stuff as well, but if Lockhart is coming in and they want people to jump on board with going all digital, like, it has to be an enticing price point. And with the Xbox One S all digital, the SAD, that price point wasn't great. It was next to nothing, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically. It was
I hope
Microsoft made more money.
I hope they learned their lesson from that. Yeah, but
even if they do that, right? The concept is if you basically say both systems don't have a disk drive, that would make more sense. If you say one system doesn't have a disk drive, that's where you get this flux and change in things. A long time ago, back when we were talking about consoles having discs and stuff like that, one of the main driving factors for game systems not going directly to digital as fast as people had assumed they would is because video game stores like GameSpot exist. GameStop. It's been a while since
I know. I always get that wrong too.
Yeah, GameStop exists. eBay has a whole bunch of used games that you can purchase, but the retail stores really matter the most. If you go into that store and you buy a console and you're there, you might pick up some other games, and you can keep going back to that store and make purchases over time. Video game stores and electronic stores love that because it's a way for people to go back and keep buying things. But when you remove the software from that box and not being able to buy it physically, suddenly those stores have less of an incentive to sell those things at a loss.
You bring up a great point. Are these stores going to want to pick up a Lockhart?
Yes.
A Lockhart is basically, it's in direct competition with how they make money.
Yeah.
Basically. Like there will not be a return investment from those people picking up a Lockhart console. Unless maybe for controllers or for
that's it,
accessories, cards, that for the digital store. But that's next to nothing.
It really is
when considering a physical disc medium that'll drive people to go and buy games.
Oh yeah, and just think about this: go into a Best Buy and see how much shelf space there is dedicated to each individual platform. What would happen if Microsoft's next platform didn't have shelf space? It just had like a row of consoles, and if you walked in this one aisle, you could see all these PlayStation games, all these controllers. That could be a huge changing factor for Microsoft and the way they're perceived amongst their audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very dangerous gambit.
If you have this sort of thin lineup of games, right, or a thin wall of games, taking into consideration that shelf space in and of itself, just the items being there, is advertising amongst the Switch and the PlayStation, PlayStation 5.
That's
and
right.
Stuff. Yeah,
right. And I mean, a lot of these companies want it's a mixture. Some companies want that extra shelf space to bring consumers into their stores. Other companies want less shelf space to sell other things. But regardless, if you've ever walked into a Best Buy, if you've ever walked into a digital store of any kind of electronic store, you'll notice that typically they put the high value items all the way at the back because you have to travel through the aisles and see a bunch of things going, wow, I didn't realize I needed a shaver, but I'm going to get one now. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. So less shelf space means that they're going to be putting those things right at the front of the store to get you out as soon as possible, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you think the release will be like? How far do you think, if Lockhart is still even a good idea? I know we're saying a lot of negative things right now, but what sort of a staggered release would you say would be okay for them to get it out so that messaging can be clear enough so people know, okay, this is the physical based system. This is the digital based system. We're all educated. This is fine.
I think after a solid year.
Yeah.
Once you've had that year there, because like what we've been hearing about the Xbox, the next system sounds really exciting, and there's a huge library of games. I mean, folks, make no mistake about this. If you are an Xbox fan, the next generation is going to be killer. Microsoft has gone and purchased all of these companies. They've invested so much money into the hardware. They're going to be making a system for gamers like no other. Maybe they'll be able to surpass Sony. We don't really know. But for that 1 year, they need to have consistent messaging across the board. After that, then you can release a cheaper system to get more people on board that didn't want to buy it initially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm thinking like the iterations that we've already gotten, like the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yes.
It actually wasn't that long between the original and the Pro upgrade, but it was like, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years or so. And I think that's sort of a comfortable space.
Yeah,
to be delivering
I really feel that's the way to go.
I'm still a little bit like there are still going to be confused grandmothers buying these things for their grandkids and stuff, and discs and things. But I mean, that's part of consoles as a whole. It's always been a problem, but they have to get directly in front of all of this messaging and make sure that people are very, very much educated.
I mean, at the very beginning of the launch of the system, if they don't want to have a disk drive in there, I think that's their choice. I think that if they were to do that, they should remain consistent across the board and use it as kind of an advantage over the Sony platforms.
But Anaconda and Lockhart, no disk drive, right? And then the messaging's clear, right? Okay, no, the Xbox, no discs. We get it.
Yeah.
Right? But
Right.
Look, that wouldn't be it.
If they did that,
Yeah.
like I said, there's issues with retail and stuff,
Right.
but if they did that,
Yeah.
that could mean that they could sell their consoles significantly cheaper than PlayStation coming into it, because we know that the PlayStation 5 is going to have a disk drive. We've heard a lot of things about Xbox as well, but we know certainly from Sony Direct that the PlayStation 5 will play discs, maybe discs from the past as well. We really don't know 100%, but we are assuming it will. When it comes to Microsoft, when they announce that new system, when they show it off, if they have clean messaging that everyone can understand, it will be the best thing possible for them. And I honestly think a lot of people will probably like something like that. Look, we're old school. We like physical media. We like collecting physical games, but that's just the thing. The future isn't going to be physical for everybody anymore. We do have Google Stadia, and boy, they tried, but when it comes to Microsoft releasing a console, there's a lot going on there that can drive people towards that system, and just being able to save maybe $50 or $100 by not having that disk drive in there could be the difference between someone not purchasing the system and someone actually getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we're going to be seeing, I hope we're going to be seeing just a straight up, like, this is the gamer box to compete with the other company's gamer box. That's what I hope it is out of the gate, so that we don't have any issues there. But yeah.
See what happens.
Yep.
Folks, do you believe that the next system for Microsoft is going to be Lockhart at launch with the Anaconda as a secondary system? Or do you think they're just going to stick exactly as everyone hopes they're going to stick, with an Anaconda system with a disk drive, and that Lockhart thing is just sometime in the future that is going to happen right away?
I think Phil Spencer wants these articles and everything, all this talk, to be dusted away until the year mark where the staggered release of this other console is going to be released. But what do you guys think about all of this? Yes, let us know in the comments below.